So we left Charleston at 6 a.m. That was about 3.5 hours ago. We've got a little bit of wind, so we have the Genoa out, but it's kind of at times flapping around. But we do get some gusts that help us on our speed, so we've got it out, and we're making a little over 6 knots average right now. The waves are behind us, kind of quartering us on the port stern. We're just a couple miles offshore as we head on towards St Augustine. We will probably get about 25-30 miles offshore. Our wind is supposed to come up a little bit later on this afternoon or into the evening. As the wind comes up in the evening, hopefully we'll be able to shut the engine off and keep our speed. We need to make 6 knots to get to St. Augustine kind of middle of the day so we can get anchored. We're going to have to anchor one night, and then we have a mooring reserve starting on Friday. So it's Wednesday now. We should be down there in about 27, maybe 30 hours, something like that. So the catamaran that passed us earlier today has got their parasailer up, and that's a good sail for downwind. We have one. We have a parasailer, and it's a great sail for going downwind, any between 150 degrees to 180 either side. The thing that I do when we get ready to make a passage is I look at all the wind angles and speeds and the crew, which is Betsy and I, and try to make a plan for which sails we're going to use. And I thought about putting the parasailer up today during the day because we had fairly light winds right from astern, but instead I'm motor sailing with the Genoa up. And the reason for that is because the winds are really too light to make the speed that we need with the parasail, because we have found our boat will make about half true wind speed with a parasail, which right now that's about 8 knots. So we would make 4 knots of boat speed. Well, we need 6 to get into St. Augustine on time. On time meaning daylight. So we chose not to fly the parasail. So it's not just laziness, it's planning. And we can put it up for a while and ooh and ah over it. But at the end of the day, Betsy and I are by ourselves, and we have to make sure that we don't wear ourselves up putting sails up and down. So that's kind of one of the things you have to do when you're cruising just as a couple, is you really have to think about your sail plan ahead of time, and then really not try to second guess yourself. The other thing that's nice about the Genoa is it just takes a second. We can roll it up, roll it out, do whatever we have to do with it. Nobody needs to go up front. Nobody needs to do anything heroic with a snuffer or anything else. If the wind kicks up, we just roll it up with a furler. So sometimes I kind of wish we had a asymmetrical spinnaker on a furler, but to be honest, it probably wouldn't give us the boat speed we need either, so we would probably be doing the same thing. So have a parasailer, absolutely. We've used it quite a bit, especially long distance trips when you're trying to save fuel, like when we go back and forth to the Virgin Islands. You got 1,200 miles, you're not going to be able to motor it. So a parasailer at 4 or 5 knots is fine, because you're not trying to time an entrance to a harbor. Food for thought. We're still motor sailing, as you can hear. We never did really get the wind that we were supposed to, so we pretty much motor sailed or motored all the way down from Charleston. Got a little bit of wave action, probably about 1.5 meters. got about 15 knots of wind. Pretty steady, not very gusty. We're going to be in St. Augustine in a couple hours. We've got about 20 miles to go. We've been at it for about 30 hours, so we'll probably make St. Augustine in about 33, 34 hours. Find a spot to anchor, and then we've got a mooring starting tomorrow. So we grabbed an anchorage here in some shallow water in St. Augustine. Advantage of being a catamaran, we can anchor in 8 feet of water. We're just outside the channel here, as you can see. There's not a lot of anchorage room here in St. Augustine. A lot of it's taken up by the city mooring field. There's some anchorage up towards the bridge there. That's the intercoastal waterway coming through there. And it's always exciting anchoring here because the currents go one way and the winds go the other, and we end up spinning around in circles sometimes. So right now the tide is coming going out and the wind is blowing the opposite direction, so we have a little bit of wave action in the anchorage here, and the boat is basically turned sideways to the wind, which is part of anchoring in an area that has strong tidal currents. So we're getting ready to move the boat onto a mooring for the next week to get it ready to pull out of the water. So we're starting to get some wind in here. Tropical storm Nicole is kind of headed our way. It's supposed to get pretty sporty tomorrow. Tomorrow's Tuesday. Tomorrow and Wednesday into Thursday is going to be pretty sporty around here. And we doubled up the lines on the mooring. Right now the tide has us crossways to the wind, which makes everything a little bumpier than normal. You can see we're kind of tugging crossways on the mooring ball. We've got the lines doubled up, so we've got plenty of strength, and we're hoping the anchorage doesn't get too bouncy. We're not too many boats out here, so drama should be to a minimum. We do have some boats at anchor up there, which could be a concern, so we'll be keeping an eye on them. But hopefully this tropical storm won't be too big of an event. You can see from the track that it might come this way. Mike and Susan's boat is there. We're kind of keeping an eye on that for them too while they're off the boat. But the storm track is supposed to not hit us squarely, and the winds, as you can see from this prediction, is supposed to top out at 40, so we'll see what happens. So it's not such a nice sunny day here in St. Augustine. We're on a mooring at the City Municipal Marina, and we have a tropical storm, soon to be maybe Hurricane Nicole, coming ashore about 170 miles south of us. So we're going to get quite a bit of storm surge, waves, and wind here in the anchorage. You can see right now that the winds are only about 13, 14 knots, and they're coming out of almost straight north. The winds are going to be north and northeast for most of this event, so mainly we're concerned about chafing on the lines to the mooring, and possibly the storm surge getting high enough to sink the mooring, and we might have to lengthen the lines that we have attached. So those are the things that we're concerned about this morning. You can see from the wind forecast that it's just going to start to build today, and the worst of it will actually be Thursday morning. It's Tuesday right now, and we should see some gusts up into the 40s here, which I'm sure is going to kick up some wind waves too. So it should be an interesting couple of days on the mooring in St. Augustine. And this is our conditions right now in the anchorage. We have a couple monohulls anchored in front of us. We have Polaris on the mooring right in front of us. We went over and doubled up their lines for them yesterday because they're not on the boat. Mike and Susan will not be here. And then we have a couple other boats behind us. And we have one more boat on the mooring behind us, a little over off to the side. So got quite a bit of room. Obviously we're not going to be dragging or anything on the mooring. You're either on the mooring or off the mooring. The waves are pretty mild right now. The sun's just coming up. But that's the old Atlantic right over there. And there's really nothing between us and the Atlantic except a little distance. So, and the wind is supposed to come pretty much from that direction, so we should get a fair amount of wave action into the anchorage here. So if things become untenable on the mooring, kind of our bailout is we could move over across the channel, kind of over into the sun there, and get a little bit more behind the land over there, and drop our anchor and put out all of our anchor road. So that's not what we want to do. We'd rather not have to move during a tropical storm, but yeah, you got to have your plan B. And then plan C is bail out, but I don't think we're going to have to worry about that. Hope not. So it's getting a little fresh in the anchorage here. There's actually a boat going out right now. We've seen a couple people go out today. I don't know if they need their big wave card or what they need, but we got all kinds of wind. But yeah, we got probably about a good 3-4 foot chop moving through the anchorage here. Part of the issue is the tide is going out, and so we've got waves against, or current against wind, excuse me. You can see over here we have the seawall. The boat we had behind us left. They had a mast that would go under the bridges around here, so I think they went to find a more protected area. So this is a little rough. Closest boat to us is Polaris. They seem to be riding about like we do. I don't know if we're going to be able to hear this with the wind. And then we've got a couple monohulls up ahead of us that appear to be maybe one of them dragging a little bit. Don't know if you can hear me with the wind noise. Getting about 20 plus knots, gusting to about 27. Nicole is still 400 miles away down in the Bahamas, but she is making herself felt up here. There's a little bit of creaking going on here, and our mooring ball is got a little loose there, but I think we're going to be okay. Got our lines doubled up, and there's a lot of load on them, but it's not as much on that beam as you'd think. Even when there's a lot of load there, I can still pick the beam up. So we're almost at low tide right now, so pretty soon the current's going to turn around the other way, and this should smooth off a little bit, hopefully. Tomorrow's going to be this bad or worse. This is our second day of Tropical Storm Nicole. The eye of the storm is about 300 miles away. And you can see the anchorage is quite choppy. We've had winds around 25 knots, gusts up to about 34, and it should get a little worse today, but not a lot. We've got some other boats here in the mooring field with us. And you can see the water's getting close to the top of the seawall there here in St. Augustine. The tide's almost all the way in right now, so we're not doing too bad on the storm surge. They're expecting a couple feet, so we're keeping an eye on that. Mooring's doing okay. We've got lines doubled up, and this is actually a pretty stress-free position for the lines across the beam and going to both of the cleats. Everything seems to be doing pretty well without a lot of chafe. And we got a couple boats anchored in front of us, and they seem to be holding. And then Mike and Susan's boat, Polaris, is also doing pretty well. So we should be getting the worst of it in the next 24 hours. We're about 48 hours into the Tropical Storm Nicole wind field here. Our fellow Anchorage are having a good time in the wind field here. It's tide's coming up. We went through high tide today and had some flooding of the road over here, but it's clear now. And we've got some pretty good sized waves in the anchorage. I'd say you got 3 to 4 foot waves, maybe a 5-footer every once in a while. And that's our exposure that way. So as the wind veers to the northeast, we're probably going to get a little more wave action here, unfortunately. And then by tomorrow morning, the wind's going to be coming straight from that direction. So there's a lot less fetch, so we should have less waves. So we should be done with this in about 36 hours. You see the waves hitting the seawall back there. But this is probably going to be the peak 36 hours coming up here. Should be a fun night. hopefully everything holds. So far no chafe on the lines, but the mooring ball has been making some clanking noises. We'll see if it holds together. Hopefully we're seeing the worst of Hurricane Nicole in St. Augustine right now. We got 30 to 35 knots of wind. We've got 5 to 6 foot waves through the anchorage. I'm sure we have probably a 3 foot storm surge. So far our fellow mooring buddies are still here. We have had reports of one boat went into the bridge, but we don't know where it came from. See, emergency vehicles are out on the roads. And we've got waves topping the seawall over here. You can see the waves topping the seawall. So our rental car's on the other side of the seawall, a little farther up. Hopefully in a more protected spot. If not, it's a rental car. There's our friend's boat, Polaris. They're still hanging in there. Can't really get out into the side here, otherwise I'll just get blown away by the wind and the rain. It's pretty nasty. And we've still got the two monohulls ahead of us. You can just barely see them. So they're hanging in there. Whee! So we are pitching to and fro. The winds are from the northeast, so that's our most exposed angle here, of course. The wind's supposed to continue to shift around as Nicole continues to make landfall down Novero Beach, about 150 miles from here. And winds should shift to the east and get lighter. It's daylight now. You can get a little clearer picture of how much fun it is here in the anchorage in St. Augustine. It's blowing 35 to 40 knots. And not a lot of fun. Hopefully it'll turn a little more to the east and we'll be a little more protected here in the next couple hours. And hopefully this is the worst of what Nicole has to offer, because this was not in the brochure. So it's almost 9 a.m. on Thursday, and Hurricane Nicole made landfall a couple hours ago, 150 miles south of us. We're in St. Augustine. It looks like we're through the worst of it. The wind is coming from the east, which gives us a little more protection now. We have one boat that went into the bridge last night, and they obviously lost their mast when they hit the bridge. Nobody was on board apparently, and the town is under a couple feet of water. You can see there's a gentleman right there canoeing through town. There's always got to be someone in their canoe, right? But it looks like the water is starting to get up on the windows of that hotel there. But high tide is in another 30 minutes. So you can see the storm wall, seawall there is topped. So you can see the railing, the bottom of that is this seawall. So, but it's not badly topped. You can see a bench sticking up there. So it just topped the seawall. And the parking lot over here has got a fair amount of water in it. So I would say there's probably 2 or 3 feet of water on the street there. And part of the reason is because the seawall is quite a bit lower up by the fort, and it's completely over that wall there. Can't even see the top of the wall. But we had Polaris. They were not on their boat, but it rode out the storm okay so far. And we've got 2 monohulls ahead of us that made it so far. And we even had a tornado go by somewhere, announced by the Weather Service, but we did not see it. So we can put riding out a tropical storm / hurricane on our list of things we've done on Agape. Definitely was not on our to-do list. So this is the setup that we had for the storm. We had double lines to the city mooring and across the beam, and it was pretty much a straight pole most of the time, so the beam didn't take much loading. The ball has got some damage, mainly the floaty part, but the ball held pretty good, and got a little bit of chafing, but barely, just barely on the cover, and all the lines held. So we had 3/4 and a 5/8 on this side, and we had 2 5/8 on that side. If we'd known everything that was coming, we would have rigged this differently. We would have put out more scope, and we would have used some different lines that we have. A couple more 3/4 inch lines. But looks like we've held so far. We got a couple more wind rain bands that are going to come through, but the wind is coming directly from that direction. We're not pointed that direction because the current is pushing the boat the other way, but you can see that we've got good coverage from that direction, so we shouldn't see massive waves anymore during the storm, and that was mainly the problem for us, not the wind. Wind's about 15 to 22 right now. It maxed out about 40. Thanks for joining us for this episode. Just goes to show you, no matter how hard you try, these tropical storms can find you. The late season storm caught us by surprise, but we came through it without any problems. Please join us on next episode as we put Agape on the hard for a couple months off. Please subscribe if you haven't, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.